So here's a fun story. I just finished doing all of these brake lines, only to find out they are all wrong. So when I did the rear of this car this summer, I did bubble flares using these blue fittings I got off Amazon, and every single one of them leaked. So I realized that I needed to do inverse flares, so I went back and I did all the inverse flares. Now none of them leaked, and I've been driving like that all summer. So when I put these ones in, I did inverse flares, but someone told me I need to do bubble flares, but those didn't work. And I realized that the original fittings are specific for bubble flares. So here is the blue fitting next to the original fitting. You can see it's got this tip here, which pushes the flare into wherever it's going. These don't have that. So I ordered replacements. Amazon sent me them. The box was labeled right, but what was inside was actually garden hose fittings. So they sent me out a replacement, but the replacement's not going to be here for a week for whatever reason. So at this point, I can either reuse my old fittings, order plated fittings from Belmetric, or wait for stainless ones to show up from Amazon. Since I have a bunch of things coming tomorrow and I want to focus on everything else, I'm just going to reuse my old ones, and I have a bunch more lines that if there's any that are too crusty, I'm sure I can dig up some nicer ones, and I'll clean them all up on the wire wheel. So this is what the used original fitting looks like after cleaning it up with a wire wheel and the bench grinder. It's not the nice new stainless like what I wanted, but they look good enough, and they function just fine. Alright, so after a whole lot of trial and error, I think I have a system down to getting a good looking flare. So this Nico kit off Amazon comes with this, and the one that I was using is a OEM, like AutoZone brand, and that comes with this, and you use this in conjunction with this little piece here, and this is made for making inverse flares. The Amazon one also comes with one of these, but this thing that locks on is completely stripped, and it's just kind of junk, and when I try to make the fitting, it just pushes the hose out the other side and doesn't actually do anything. So this is junk. So the successful mix that I'm going to go with is using this part of the Nico kit and then this part of the OEM kit, but I'll use the back side because it's flat, and the front side has these countersinks for making inverted flares. So since Nycop bends so easily, I bend it with my hand, and then I zip tie it every few inches as I go. And then when I'm done, I just take all the zip ties off, and everything should match up. To set the timing on an M42, the crank has a notch that aligns with this arrow on the oil filter housing. And I was waiting to get a M44 oil filter housing because there's a design flaw in this one that makes it so you're actually recirculating bad oil, and they updated that with the M44. But I was having a hard time getting a hold of one, so I'm just going to put this one on for now and plan to upgrade later. I'm using just a paper gasket. that on, I can put on my alternator bracket. All of my timing stuff should be here soon, so I'm gonna just kind of set everything up. These sprockets that go on the end of the cams have these little arrows here, and from what I've read, those are supposed to be pointed up. So I have them the cam's pretty close to parallel, and where these have so much adjustment, I should be fine just bolting them in for now. For my water pump, I'm actually going to reuse the one that I took off the engine. As you can see, this is it looks like it was replaced recently, and they come stock with a plastic impeller, but they were upgraded later on with a metal one so that they didn't disintegrate and lose all their pieces inside the engine. So this has been updated recently. I'm just going to use it or reuse it. So while I was digging through my parts that I ordered for this build, I found that I did order an O-ring for my water pump. So I'm gonna pull this off and replace that. But the trick to getting this off is actually, there's two threaded holes here and here, and when you pull these bolts out, if you just re-thread them into these and then you tighten it down, it pushes against the timing case and pops the pump out. Might as well do my oil filter while I have it all apart. There we go. So these filter kits should, if they're good, come with all these replacement things. So your O-ring goes there. There's a small O-ring here, which you can just pry off. And then washers go up on top. I believe one's a crush washer and one's a crush washer and one's a stainless. It looks like. I'm gonna put the crush on the bottom. So you can see here, this seal comes out off that face a tiny bit. And a lot of people say that leaks happen because of that. So I'm just gonna cut it off. I'll do the same thing to this side. Should have done it before I put the oil housing on. Alright, so these are all the cover bolts sorted out. So now I gotta clean them all up on the bench grinder. So now that I have the tool, I can set my timing and then put my whole timing case together. Alright, so as you can see, these slots in this tool, what they do is they hold the cams parallel with each other, and then I'll tighten the screws on the front that lock them onto the cam gears. Before I put the cover on, I got this little guide that helps keep the chain lubricated, and this is specific to the later M42 timing case. Again, I'm using Ultra Black RTV. For this seal, I did the same thing I did on the timing case to head, where I globbed on a lot of RTV, and then I let it sit for a while. So I've already test fit these, but these are the shorter E90 exhaust studs, and they actually work out perfect for my exhaust manifold. Kind of wish I did all of them with these because the nuts will thread on faster. So for the hardware to hold the manifold on, I'm using copper M7 nuts that I bought from Bellmetric. While I have it in this position, I'm just gonna hook up the oil return line. With everything mounted up, I figured I'd go over the entire turbo setup itself. So it's a water-cooled GT35R. The water cooling comes from the thermostat housing. The oil return line is just another AN fitting, goes right to the bottom of the oil pan. So there's the turbo itself. This hardware and this hardware is all Inconel, and it's from flyingmiata.net or .com, and it's got these arrow type things that you usually see on like heavy equipment, and they make it so that these nuts can't back off these studs. So you can see like they're wedged right against there. The manifold is from 666 Fab. I don't think they're around anymore. They made these manifolds for a while for the M42. That's pretty much it.